Well, I finally went over everything, and I dielectric greased every single connector on this thing and tied everything up nice and neat because there was a lot of, for some reason, there was a lot of connectors that didn't have the rubber gaskets. Some of them have it, some of them don't. I don't understand why they would do that. It's either use them or don't. You can see right there that that one right there is rubber and weatherproof, but the one next to it is not. So I inserted dielectric grease into every connector. Um, Typically, this is what I've been using. Um, Also, I've been meaning to do this, and I kind of didn't get around to it till now. I actually put the directionals back on, even though I'll never use this thing on the road, but I didn't actually do it for directional use. Because this bike gets used on the farm, and there's a lot of kids that ride on the farm that they don't want on the farm. Whenever I'm riding, sometimes the owners or the employees think I'm one of those kids. Plus, this bike gets used during some seasonal events, and I want to make sure that when I'm out there, they know that it's me and not some kid coming in riding on the farm. So what I did is let's see. Okay, so typical dash. Let's see here. I put a switch in right here. This switch is for the emergency lighting. Um, so the high beam flashes alternating with both directionals. And in the back, the directionals flash with the brake light. And when you hit the brake light, if I was to hit, say, the brake pedal, it simply stops flashing and goes into brake light mode. If I was to use the directionals and the lights were still flashing, it flashes the directionals. I'm going to put the left one on. You can see that the left one's flashing, but it's also flashing with the actual emergency flash. However, if emergency flashes are shut off, it flashes normal. Now, this requires diode isolators to do this because the lights are running dual duty. So these have to operate independently, of course, left and right in order to be for them to be directionals, but they have to operate together if I'm running them as emergency flashes. So I had a diode isolate these so that the flasher runs them through a diodes, and that stops the backfeed from happening so that when I step on the brake pedal or pull in the brake lever, the high beam doesn't come on because the high beam is wired with the brake light when it's in emergency flash mode. But when it's not in emergency flash mode, of course, they're independent. You won't see the high beam come on. Say, for instance, if I pull the lever, you won't see the high beam come on. But if I didn't have the diode isolators in there, you would. Same thing with the directionals. If I didn't have the diode isolators on and I was to turn on the directional, say the left one, both of them would turn on. So this stops that from happening, the diode isolators. I just made them. Took me only a couple of minutes to make them. So again, if the emergency flashes are on and I put the brake on, you'll see that the high beam doesn't come on, where it would come on before if I didn't do that. You can see the brake lights operating normal back there. So that isolates them. Plus, I got dashboard feedback that the flashers are on. And everything works the way it did before, except for now there's a flashing unit in there to run all of this stuff. And if I was to put, say, the headlights on, the low beam would burn constant, but well, it's hard to see on the camera because it's a little bit overdone as far as exposure goes. But see if you can see it like this. Yeah, there you go. It still flashes. If I was to turn the high beam on by pushing the button, it simply doesn't flash anymore because the high beam is overriding it. When I shut the high beam off, it starts flashing again. So it works exactly the way that it should. Now, obviously, if you were to use separate lighting for just the emergency equipment, then you wouldn't need to go through the trouble. You just simply wire up the emergency equipment. The problem is where would I mount them on this bike? Like, where would I put dedicated lights to shine backwards? There's no place other than the directional. So I just put the directionals back on and wired them up same way the factory wires them. But I made all my connections behind the headlight. And like I said, the diode isolators are in here. Everything is dielectric grease and everything is disconnects, spades, and spade connectors, male and female. So that makes it easy to diagnose things or to replace something or whatever. But it is the bike is going to be used for some seasonal stuff here on the farm. And like I said, having the emergency flashers makes it pretty obvious that it isn't some kid off the street riding, because that's what's happened a few times already. I didn't realize it, but I was told later that the first couple of days I was riding this thing out there after hours, some of the guys were chasing me down. I didn't even know it because they thought I was some kid and they were going to kick me off the property. But once they realized it was me, they just laughed and walked away. But this will make it fairly obvious that it's not some kid. So it's pretty cool. That should get somebody's attention. Turn the headlight on. I said if you turn the headlight on, if I could find the damn switch. There it is. Pretty cool.